First up is Paul Oldfield, Director for Sport. This is a hell of a title, Paul. Sport, Commonwealth Games, Gambling, Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport. Paul has had a pretty torrid night with a young child, so I really, really do appreciate you getting across to us this morning. He's going to reflect on the achievements of Sporting Future and also talk about the plans for 2019 and beyond. So please welcome Paul.
Good morning, everyone, and everyone, thanks ever so much for the kind welcome. Yes, I should just sort of start with an apology. I'm afraid after I've spoken today, I'm going to need to dash off because I have a quite unwell 15-month-year-old. So I really wanted to be here and talk to everyone and show sort of government's engagement with today. So me dashing off, please don't take that as sort of any reflection of government not wanting to engage with this kind of important agenda. So apologies from me for having to dash off and not being able to stick around for the panel discussion. But look, I am really delighted to be here today. It's a really great opportunity to talk to such a varied, engaged and enthused audience. People who are really making a reality of the ambitions that the government has set out for sports policy in this country. And as everyone said, I've been asked to talk a bit about what we've achieved so far since Sporting Future and sort of things for the future. I kind of feel slightly like I've been set up to fail with that kind of session title, mainly because I'm going to be sort of talking to a bunch of people who've made this a reality. So I'm going to be reflecting back to you what you've all been doing for the last few years. So I think probably in the grandest tradition of government speakers, I'm now going to attempt to teach my metaphorical, and I stress the word metaphorical, grandmas to suck eggs. But I hope I might be able to offer you something by way of some kind of insight that might benefit you all in your day jobs and that you can sort of take away after the conference and make use of. I'm also going to try desperately hard not to steal Lisa's thunder, who actually probably will give you much more insight than I will, and I'm sure she will give a really great insight about what we've achieved so far and some of the things that we've learnt and Sport England have learnt. Firstly, it's worth just a quick reminder about what we're trying to achieve. So I think probably most of the people in this room will know Sporting Future, the government sports strategy, was published almost 3 years ago now. It set out the government's ambitions to get more people engaged in sport and physical activity. As you all know, it represented a pretty significant shift in sports policy and a focus on 5 key outcomes. So physical and mental well-being, individual development, community development and economic development. So not just sport for the sporty, but recognising the wider impacts that sport can have for society. It's not just a pastime that enthusiasts love, but a key to unlocking significant health, societal and economic benefits for the whole population. It was also about putting the customer first, so making sure people do the sport and physical activity that is right for them. We all know that a positive experience of sport can be a really kind of uplifting and mood-changing experience, but a negative experience can put you off and can put you off for life. So we need to get better at offering people what they want and not expecting everyone to conform to one version of what sport or physical activity involves. I was just saying to some of my colleagues on the panel this morning, and thank God I do think this, I think that the proposals set out in Sporting Future really are the right ones. It turns out the Australians do too. They published a sports strategy earlier this year, funnily enough focusing on 5 key social and economic outcomes, something that Tracy Crouch had great delight in hearing about. Imitation is a sort of sincerest form of flattery and all that. But seriously, I think there is a consensus both amongst the sports community in the UK and more broadly that we're finally asking the right questions and trying to come up with the right answers. The problem for us all is that those questions are difficult ones, and I guess I would sort of liken this to, I think we've moved from being A-level students to now studying for our PhDs. And I think it's that level of complexity that is kind of the real challenge for us as we take forward Sporting Future. So what have we done and what have we achieved? Well, first of all, we're being as transparent as we possibly can be. We've been reporting progress to Parliament through our annual reports on Sporting Future, and we've set out our key achievements to date and published data against 25 key performance indicators. Active Lives and the new Active Lives Children Survey, I think, will provide us with even more data to kind of enrich that picture and allow us to take some really evidence-based decisions on where we target our investment and our policy responses. We've developed new targets. We've agreed with Sport England that by 2020, 500,000 people more should be doing 150 minutes of physical activity. 250,000 of those people will be women, and a further 100,000 people will be from lower socio-economic groups. And what that reflects is the government's real focus on trying to make sure that we're trying to reach those hard-to-reach groups and those people who aren't traditionally engaged in sport and physical activity, and trying to make that step change in the population as a whole. We've also ensured that the money supports a new strategy, so we've agreed that all of Sport England's future funding will go to organisations that are able to deliver those 5 outcomes I talked about earlier. I think that's a really positive thing. It gives more organisations than ever before a chance to access funding and make a difference to achieving those outcomes. We're also piloting new and more sophisticated approach to get people active. £100 million is being invested in local delivery pilots, recognising, I think, that we need to work in partnership better if we're truly to deliver a step change in physical activity. And when talking to colleagues at Sport England about those local delivery pilots, I'm really struck at the sort of real level of granular detail that they're having to get into, understanding the barriers in local areas, forging new partnerships with people that people may never have worked with before in order to try and deliver kind of real system change. And it is hard, detailed work. We've also put a greater emphasis on diversity. So we're trying to help people to get active in ways that suit them. So just over £1.5 million will go to the 7 national disability organisations who represent specific impairment groups, and £2.5 million will go to the Activity Alliance to engage with disabled people. And I think, as you all know, Sport England's award-winning campaign, This Girl Can, has been trying to engage with women and try and get them more involved in sport and physical activity. And the next phase of that programme will focus on Black, Asian and minority ethnic women and those from lower socio-economic groups. So again, trying to target those people who are harder to reach and haven't traditionally taken part in sport and physical activity. We're also focusing on young people. So Sport England's remit extended down to the age of 5. We're now investing over £200 million into improving children's enjoyment of physical activity. And for government's part, DCMS is engaging ever more closely with our colleagues across government, talking to the Department of Education and Department of Health, as we always have done, but perhaps reaching out to some other government departments, whether that be Department of Transport, Ministry of Justice, Home Office, trying to think about different ways in which sport can have a positive impact on society, whether that be reaching some of those people who are hardest to reach in society, or thinking about reoffending with offenders that the Ministry of Justice deals with. But I guess the last thing I just want to talk about in terms of what we've achieved and what we've done since Sporting Future is just also to reflect on the fact that the strategy was not all about increasing sport and physical activity. There were sort of some really important other aspects, and I know my minister has particularly close to her heart sort of duty of care and safeguarding, and I thought it was just worth mentioning and reflecting on Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson's report that led to significant changes in the culture and environment in which people participate in sport. We have the Culture Health Check, we've published a mental health action plan, but we really need to make sure that the sports sector continue to take the issues of welfare and safeguarding seriously, and I know that will strike a chord with lots of people in the room today. So, look, by way of conclusion, I just wanted to say that I think an awful lot has been achieved in the first 3 years since we published the strategy, and I'm hoping to see green arrows against all of our indicators in our kind of future Sporting Future updates. But as I said kind of at the beginning and throughout my remarks, I think that this is really, really complex and detailed stuff. PhDs are often the culmination of years, sometimes a lifetime of study. I'm hoping it doesn't take us a lifetime to crack some of the challenges we've set ourselves in Sporting Future. But 3 years in, we might just see that a sport and physical activity doctorate is within grasp within the near future. So that's all I want to say today, and I'll hand over to Lisa, who I'm sure will kind of give a bit more detail and flavour about kind of what we've achieved so far and what work Sport England is leading to try and make sure that we deliver the strategy as successfully as we possibly can. Thank you.